Another way of saying this is, here is the Hubble Ultra Deep Field. This is what you get when you point your camera at the sky and just take a picture. If your camera is attached to the Hubble Space Telescope, you see all of these little blobs, each one of which is a galaxy comparable in size to our Milky Way galaxy. So every one of these galaxies has billions of stars, of order 100 billion stars. There's 100 billion such galaxies in the universe. None of them are necessary for us to exist here on Earth. If you were just going to make the universe and you were going to solve fine-tuning problems enough for life to exist, there's no reason to make any of these galaxies. All of the matter, all of the degrees of freedom in those galaxies should be in thermal equilibrium. If you're going to claim that your explanation for fine-tuning is that God made it that way in order for life to exist, you strongly predict that this should be blank, or at least just a chaotic mess. It should not have all of these other galaxies in there. And I know that many religious believers would look at a picture like this and go, oh my goodness, the glory and stupendousness of God's creation. I look at a picture like this and say, how in the world can you think that the reason for this is to let us be here? We are very tiny compared to a very big universe. So there's of course responses to this kind of argument. People have thought of it. They say, well, maybe you can't make us. Maybe you can't form our solar system without forming all those other galaxies and so forth. This is just false. Everything we know about physics tells us that none of those other galaxies is necessary to explain what we have in our neighborhood here. So you say, well, maybe the reason why you get all those other galaxies of this really lower entropy than you ever needed is because God is sort of procedurally thrifty. God does not just make, so remember, it's God we're talking about. God would have no trouble making just the Milky Way if that's what God chose to do. But you might say, well, God wants to play by his own rules, so God plays by the laws of physics, so God makes use of some physical mechanism for universe creation, which as a byproduct of making conditions that allow for us to exist, also make 100 billion other galaxies. So that is plausible, but you see what's happening. You see that by trying to explain this feature that we would not have predicted, we are pushed to create an essentially physical, naturalistic, scientific explanation. We are removing all of the usefulness from God. We're saying that the reason why the universe looks like that is because there's some physical mechanism that makes it look like that, and that's what God used. But that's a story I can tell without invoking God at all. There's a physical mechanism that made the universe look like this, and then I can just stop. So the advantage that you might have had in invoking God in the first place has gone away.